G'day everybody, happy Friday. We are back with Overdose and Chill, number 134. Been a while since I've managed to jump onto Chill, but I am so excited to be chatting today with Sarah Kennedy, the founder of Calocurb. And we're going to be chatting all things through Kiwi innovation, funding rounds, go-to-market, global expansion, my little skinny pills. Oh, hold on, I need to get the logo in the right place. What my kids call my skinny pills, the Calocurb. So we are broadcasting live across LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and you'll be picking us up on all of your favorite podcast channels. If you've got questions, chuck them into the comments of whatever platform you're watching us on. Raven is hiding behind the scenes, and we'll be picking those up and throwing those questions on screen. Sarah, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Todd.
So, Sarah, give us a little introduction about yourself, who you are, where you're from, and then we'll rip into some chats about your background and experience as well.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm Sarah Kennedy. I'm the CEO and founder of Calocurb. I'm a New Zealander. I grew up in Whangarei. Your typical up north kid, so lots of beaches and weather and so on like that, rode horses and all the rest. I came to school for my secondary school and then went to Palmerston North for university, where I actually, sounds odd now, but I graduated as a veterinarian and practiced for about 5 years as a veterinarian.
So Calocurb, we'll get to the product in a moment. That's been in market now for a few years, but I'm imagining that there is a backstory of many years before that of research and inspiration and innovation and studies. Talk us through, the pre-getting a product to market, and where did the concept even come from?
Well, yeah, no, it's a really good question. I'll take it through. From my background, or part of my background, I was the CEO of Healtheries for 11 years. So from, I think, 99 through to 2010. And we grew the company from 25 million to 200 million by acquisition and product development and all of those things. So I had this background in this natural health or nutraceutical market. I went away to MIT, or I did my Sloan Fellowship in Boston, and then came back and joined Fonterra and a number of things. But you could see my background was in this nutraceutical. And so in 2017, I was approached, everything in New Zealand is, everyone knows everyone else, by someone that had worked for me at Fonterra and then had gone to plant and food research and as a business development manager. And he approached me with an extract that they had developed over the preceding 7 years, which was clinically proven to reduce your appetite, and I can go into the mechanism of that, and your calorie intake by 18%. And Brendan said to me, hey, what do you think we should do with this extract? And when I looked at it, I had never seen something with that amount of research behind it in one of the biggest categories in the world, where we could own it from source to shelf. So often, you'll have hot ingredients will come in, and you'll get the ingredient, this is in Healtheries days, and you'll put it under your brand, but you never actually own the ingredient with this. So, naively, I look back now, I said, oh God, this is amazing. I'm interested in it. And we really rolled from there. We spent a year in planning, and I always laugh because in the early days, Brendan and I would meet probably once a week on a Wednesday at the Stafford Road bar and talk about what we were doing and all the rest. So we're actually going to name the company Stafford Road because I think quite a bit of wine was consumed there. But in 2017, we kind of worked up the business plan. I raised capital, then formed a team. Look, there's numerous things, but we launched in 2018.
So how many years was it between that first meeting and actually getting a product on the shelf?
That was probably about 18 months, but the research started. Yeah, okay. The research started in 2010 when Plant and Food Research got a grant for 20 million for a project called Foods for Appetite Control, because they had a hypothesis that they would find a natural plant-based extract that suppressed appetite. Now, the reason they had that hypothesis actually comes from historical reasoning, and the fact that in times of famine, Scottish people chewed very, very bitter berries to suppress their appetite. Also, in Kalahari Desert, tribesmen chew very, very bitter cactus when they go hunting to suppress their appetite. And there were other, there were obviously a number of other things that went into this hypothesis. But yeah, they got that grant in 2010 and then spent the next 6 years on just some of the work they did was extraordinary, but in showing that we had these little taste buds right through our intestines that reacted to very bitter products. So, getting to some of the stories were hilarious, and getting these cells to be able to show these. Dr. Ed had to go and hang out in hospitals and ask people getting colonoscopies and things like that if they wouldn't mind donating some biopsies. So with some wonderful backstories. They did that. They then tested over 900 or about 1,000 extracts on this model to see which would release these gastric hormones. And then they came up with the extract we use, which was really just the eureka. It absolutely overdosed, that's a wonderful word, overdosed on, releasing these gastric hormones, which are appetite suppressing hormones. And then they took that into a human clinical, which was a big human clinical because it was, it was blood was taken, a whole lot of measurements were taken and so on like that. And that's when they came to me in 2017. So part of a lot of the science had been done, but obviously no commercialization. And what would you do with this?
And that path of 8 years from concept to shelf, is that quick? Is that slow? Is that normal?
Well, for a pharmaceutical, it would be very, very short. For a nutraceutical, it's very, very long. But, we were developing the ingredient as well. So, yeah, for a nutraceutical, long. But just as a back to that, we were just recently in New York at the Obesity Management Conference. And these were specialist physicians here. So they've all passed their exams. They're either endocrinologist or obesity specialist. And we were just overwhelmed by their response to us. And, the point of difference was we had the science. We've got 3 published clinical papers. And without those 3 published clinical papers, I literally would have been laughed out of the room. So the science... we are, if you wanted to say it, we're a commercial product, but we're almost an IP company, given that science behind it.
And is that where the market's heading? Because if we look at that natural remedies, herbal supplements, there's a lot of, I can walk down the aisle of Countdown now, and there is shelves and shelves and shelves of product there, which is, it's Dr. Google self-diagnosis to many extents. But do you see that there is this move towards scientific justification of natural remedies? And because it feels like that's a new category that's kind of opening up.
Yeah, look, it's a good question. And some of it, and I'll come from my Healtheries and Vitaco days, there is incredible historical information about natural products. Vitamin C for scurvy, vitamin B because you're not getting it in the sun, vitamin E. So these things, and there are ongoing clinicals all the time happening in these. So you've got both science and historical usage. But for something like this, where you've got a completely, your extract is new, well, it's not a new extract because it is actually a particular variety of hops, but it's the first time it's been used for this indication. Absolutely, categorically, you have to have that science. So I say we in the royal we, it was actually Plant and Food, took what we'd call a pharmaco pathway to this, where they almost did like developing a drug, but with a natural product. And that's what is just, just put us in this fabulous position now with the practitioner channel. They're like, oh yeah, so tell me how this works. Instead of being snake oil, I can show them the clinicals. And, the wonderful thing is they just get it immediately. And they just rattle off the questions like, how does it work? Show me the evidence. What are the side effects? What is this? And, it was just a joy to talk to them because of that science.
So you mentioned there that you're an IP company more than a product company. I'm imagining there were some interesting conversations when you go back to those kitchen table bottle of wine conversations of, do we want to be a completely vertically integrated single SKU branded company? Or there must have been decisions or conversations about, hey, I could just kind of market this IP through big pharma. What was that decision making as an entrepreneur that led you to want to actually own the brand as well as the IP, the technology? And really
it's an interesting question, because I had to convince Plant and Food I was the right one to partner, not a big pharma. Okay. So they actually had the technology, which I licensed off them globally. So I had to convince them. And interesting at that time, because we're talking 2017, the big farmers and the big, the very big nutraceutical companies, they just weren't, they're very big at following things. So they just were like, oh, no, well, you've got to show me. You've got to have it in a product. You've got to do it like this. So part of us is showing them that it can, it's being commercialized in this route to market. So, and of course, the other thing, Todd, that's happened in 2021, a product called Wegovy was approved by the FDA in the market. Now, Wegovy is by Novo Nordisk. People might have heard of Ozempic or a semaglutide. Ozempic's more. And this was approved for weight loss. Now, it's just been unbelievable. So with Wegovy, you inject it in yourself once a week. And you inject in a synthetic GLP-1, which is the gastric hormone that goes to your brain and tells you you're full. So this is when people talk about a brain-gut axis. This is what tells us we're full. Otherwise, we'd continue to eat till we popped. So this was approved. And, of course, our mode of action is to stimulate the natural release of GLP-1. So they inject it in. They inject a synthetic. We stimulate the natural release. So this is how we reduce calorie intake. So Novo Nordisk has just educated the market for us. It's been extraordinary. Right. The rate of growth of these drugs, well, it's the one drug at the moment, Eli Lilly will come in at the end of the year, has been extraordinary. Prescription rates have grown by 2,000% since 2020. The market is valued at the moment at about 2.2 billion. That's just in the US, and it's growing at 50%. It is now forecasted to be 10 billion by 2025. So we kind of just come into this because we are the only natural supplement or extract in the world that does the same as these drugs. And I have the clinicals to show it. So, so that's why the science has been so critical. Our timing has been, I'd love to say it was all planned, but it's been, sometimes, some things happen, and we're patented as well. So, yeah, it's been an extraordinary journey over the last 3 years.
Talk me through moving from Healtheries when you're in a, how many SKUs did you manage at Healtheries? Tens of thousands?
God, yeah, thousands, yeah.
So moving from that environment of where it's multi-product, multi-brand, multi-SKU, multi-vertical environment to a single SKU environment, were there things that you brought with you from Healtheries that then actually that doesn't work in this environment because I'm selling one solution? I'm not selling lifestyle. I'm selling a solution here. what were some of the psychological changes that have gone through there? Because it's a pretty unique environment in digital now to only have one SKU, right? There's not many retailers in that space.
Well, for me, I mean, in Healtheries, it was different because we'd been different aisles, different categories, and we'd look across the 5 biggest drivers in the market, which are immunity. I hate to say it, we loved winter. Our sales went up 30%, so we're always looking at the vitamin C, the zincs, or everything like that. Of course, gut health wasn't even in then. We were always looking at bones and joints, so we had our glucosamines, and you're always looking for the latest ingredient. And then it was brain, weight, and sleep. Those are the 5 big categories. So what we're doing in Healtheries, we're always on an NPD. Like we would have probably 40 products on an NPD calendar that we were constantly turning over. Because
Explain NPD to us.
Oh, sorry, new product development.
New product development, okay.
So we would have that constantly because that's what you did. You constantly were, what was the new ingredient? What was the tweaking of it? What could you do? Because if you didn't do it, someone else would be doing it. And of course, everyone has access to, let's say, glucosamine, which is a joint product. Everyone has that. So you've got to get it out faster than your competitor in a dosage that works and be able to communicate it. So you're rapidly turning over products. So interesting, we as a team, a lot of us would go to Expo West every year, which is in Anaheim, and they have about 10,000 exhibitors there. And, there's retailers, there's everywhere. And we would literally walk the aisles looking for anything new. So we would get ahead of everyone else. So we would grow at about 10 to 15% per year. And that was through MPD. Though it was, that was an amazing background because it was just always, and then you get it on the market and how do you communicate it and how do you sell it? And, you have also in retail, and this was prior to digital, you have probably 3 seconds in a supermarket at best to sell something. So, you've got to make sure that, interesting, I remember St. John's wort was probably the quickest NPD ever done. It came out on a 60 minutes program about St. John's wort for depression and stress. We had the raw material and the goods and the product produced and on the shelves in 6 weeks.
So you go from that environment, which is a value add new product growth cycles, into a Calocurb environment where you are shit or bust. You are starting from zero. You only have one SKU that is going to demarcate your success or failure. Did that feel like a different journey as a founder, entrepreneur, or did you use some of those same tactics of education, mass market media, and then backing it up with supply chain?
It didn't really feel different. I mean, the luxury of it is, I can go into far more depth into the science, and we can keep investing in science. Like we would never invest in primary research like we're doing now. So I was kind of almost moving into a pharma market versus a nutraceutical market with hundreds of products. The one thing in this category is it's just so large and growing so fast that, you don't have to be in another category. Right. I mean, it is, as I said, it's growing at 50% just in the pharma market. 70% of people, the population in the US is overweight or obese. It's just, and it's happening. And the big thing, I suppose, is learning about this category. Everyone will say, it's about willpower and it's their lifestyle and that. It's a little bit about lifestyle. A lot of it's genetics and a bit in lifestyle, but a huge part, which is really coming out and being educated, is it's the physiology. We have this axis, this brain-gut axis, and if the physiology, which, is the release of these hormones that tell your brain that you're full, and your body, it's an evolutionary trait in us, actually fights against you to lose weight. So that's probably been the biggest education for people, because we often get, oh no, it's willpower. It's got nothing to do with willpower. It is all physiology and how you break that cycle and allow people to set their new, what we call a new metabolic set point. So I've loved going deep into this and deep into the science. I could read.
And I love, Sarah, that you stay on topic with your one product, because there is so much temptation in this digital space to say, I've got a database of clients, I'm now going to start selling them vitamin C and magnesium, and I'm going to have all these extra products, and we're going to sell gym memberships and lifestyle classes and coaching. But your vision has always been, no, this is my message, right? And it's single and it's concentrated and focused and never gets diluted along that path. Yeah.
Oh, look, we've been tempted. We have been tempted along the way, but there's just so much to communicate in there that, I mean, it's a luxury. But also, I suppose the other thing, Todd, is we're in Healtheries. I was in New Zealand, Australia, and China, and we did a bit of export to Europe, but not a lot. Here, I can be in multiple markets. And, having more than one product just can complicate your supply chain. Like the thought of trying to do another couple of SKUs, SKUs or products back through a virtual supply chain, will just do your head in. I mean, ours is not complicated, but reasonably complicated. So in order for me to be flexible enough to go into multiple international markets, I have to, I have to be singular in that focus.
So let's dig into that a bit more. Tell me about those decisions of how you select which markets to move into, and obviously how you balance some of the cash flow and the funding rounds, because this shit ain't cheap to go and enter into those new spaces. So has that government support continued? Are you still Kiwi proud, and you promote as a Kiwi product? And how do you select those new territories and some of those go-to-market strategies? I know a lot of people would be really interested in that.
Well, certainly we are Kiwi proud. The extract is grown in New Zealand. It's actually grown in Motueka, which many people will know is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Interesting, you've got to be careful with this whole Kiwi. They love the clean green, they get it. But like America, which is our largest market, and it's the largest market for us in the world, they like that it's grown in New Zealand. They get that. They absolutely love that it's manufactured in the US. So we couldn't manufacture here anyway. We don't have the technology here. We're manufactured in a patented capsule in Greenwood, South Carolina. So we grow the extract here, we extract it, we send it to America, and then it's made into these patented capsules. And there's only 2 places in the world that I can make it. So that kind of, decided that part of the supply chain for me. So that's the Kiwiness of it. And, as I said, at these 2 conferences. So first time away in 3 years for us, which was amazing. Loved it, New Zealand, but absolutely manufactured in the States was a big thing for them. Anytime we say it's FDA approved and so on, they got. Interesting. So why the US? Well, first of all, it's the largest market. And it's growing. The nutraceutical is worth, I think, about 3.2 billion just in weight management. And as I said, that pharmaceutical one, the semaglutides, and that's growing just rapidly. So we've got this very big market there, and that's the one we have to talk about. And that's one we look at. We also had regulatory approval there. Regulatory approval is huge for us. So we had Plant and Food had done something called GRAS, which is generally recognized as safe. So we had a self-determined GRAS document, and that had cost $50,000 US. So, nothing's cheap in getting these things. So we have a regulatory consultant in the US who looks through all of our clinicals and tells us what we can say and what we can't say. And then we sit under a regulatory, something called DSHEA, Dietary Supplements, Health and Education Act in the US. So they ticked all the boxes. So, I can do the USA and large market. Interesting to your question, I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, and this has been, a 4-year journey, that we'll receive our Australian regulatory approval sometime next week. And so I have to be registered under the TGA, the Therapeutics Goods Administration, to there. In order to get that, I had to do our third human clinical on women, which took 20 months. It was delayed a little bit with COVID, but it takes that long to do a clinical and spend $250,000. So
there's no version of this which is spin up a .Singapore site and just start selling. You literally need to start from scratch in every location. And I'd hope for your sake that 80% of the rules of engagement are similar, but it sounds like everyone's got a different acronym and a different set of paperwork for everything.
We spent 2.5 years with a company in Mexico. You would hate to see the paperwork. The dossier is great to try and get a regulatory. This is in Mexico. It's easier to buy drugs over the counter than it is illegal drugs over the counter. Sorry for anyone who's Mexican who's listening. And we had to drop it in the end. We absolutely. Really? So South America, Puerto Rico. See, interesting in America, we've just started going into Puerto Rico. They're okay. Brazil is a nightmare. Mexico is a nightmare. Germany. You would think Germany. We had another big company we were working with in Germany. You'd think, they're great. They've got a lot of botanicals there. They're nightmare. Germany is a nightmare. Wow. UK, good. So every market is different. And so, you've got to weigh up, what's the size of the market? What's my ease of getting into it? Do I understand, the regulatory is first. And then the other thing is, what are they, like if I'm going to go digital to start with, what are their platforms? What are their payments? In Mexico, it's a lot of multi-level marketing, but people pay by cash. There's just all of these things. So it's fascinating. But regulatory is one that we look at first. And if it's just too hard, and we can't make any claims, we go, it's too hard.
And I think it's relatively, I don't think it's unique, but it's definitely a new way of thinking that brands like yourself, your first view of the market is direct to consumer. Because if we were doing this 10 years ago, your first view of the market would be FMCG, supply chain, distribution, right? Does that still scale with the business? Because the level of education and the investment that goes into that education, there's a long tail to getting the product into customers' hands, right? And I'm imagining from some of the things you were saying about St. John's Worts is that there's these jumping the shark moments, right? Of where there's suddenly one piece of PR, one piece of media, and it's like, hallelujah, that $1 million I spent in the last 12 months has all suddenly come back within 2 weeks. Is it, because you talked about some cyclicalness with Healtheries, but I'm expecting with a single brand, it's really just step change kind of growth, right?
Well, there is a bit of cyclical, and we call it the bikini season, so the summer season. You can imagine. Well, you can get into your bikini now, Todd, after you're superb. What you've done. But it is a step change, and you're 100. What we have been very lucky, as I said, in the US, with this FDA approval of Ozempic or Wegovy, in the fact that they went so hard. They actually educated the consumer before they educated the doctors, because in the doctors' awareness of obesity treatment in the US was about 7%. So they're like, oh, I'm going to go and educate the consumers. And this is why they did this massive things with influencers, Kim Kardashian, how she got into the dress. It was even mentioned. They just massively. So, that has really helped us. We're in the tailwind of that direct to consumer. But what we're doing now is we'll go through the practitioner channel as well. So we'll go through the doctor channel, the natural doctor channel, the naturopathic channel, because, we suffer in this market of a lot of snake oil, which does my head in, because, when you've spent 25 million on research and someone goes, that's just another bit of snake oil, you just, you really want to, you stop them eating by wringing their neck. But but if you go through a doctor and a doctor refers you, your level of trust is magnified by sixfold.
Yeah.
And we just spent actually an hour this morning with a doctor in the US, well, actually in New York, who has a huge patient numbers, and just walking through all of the things. So we'll form a Q&A from that. But yeah, that's our next channel, is through the practitioner. It will still be, most of them are still direct. There is a platform in the US called Fullscript, which literally services about 88% of all practitioners. So you're still going digitally. You're not going doctor to doctor, but it'll be through that platform. So it's sort of the Amazon of the practitioners.
And so you mentioned snake oil there. Are you anticipating that other people will see your success, undoubtedly, and they will come up with their Scottish berry extract or their desert cactus extract and play in a whole new category of bitter products that are appetite suppression? Are you ready and waiting for that to happen?
Look, I'm sure it will. We've already seen this little mini spike with berberine in social media, which I can tell anyone that's listening, berberine does not work like this, and you'd have to take it for 2 months to see. So stay on your pills, Todd. We will, but this is where the science comes in. So they won't have the science to make these claims. They can't.
Right.
So we have a patent around our formulation.
Time is your advantage as much as the IP, right?
Yeah, so we have that. So to make a claim, they'd have to do it. The other thing is, we've got sort of, I'd hate to say we have a deep moat, because no one's got a deep moat, but, we've got a moat around it. It has to be in a patented capsule, and it has to release at a specific place in your intestine. If they just give a bitter product to you, you're going to vomit. So you might lose weight with that, but it's not going to be a pleasant experience. So, the thing is, so we have, this is why going back to the science and this length of time, it has just been so important for us. A, just to repeat those, and B, to repeat those trials and see the cost of doing them.
Yeah, one of my fears for a product like yourself is that with the age of digital and the age of influence, for all the scientific requirements that are there, snake oil is easier than ever to push out to market, right? Where you have a few gym bunnies, I've been on these skinny pills, yada, 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 yada. It's multi-level marketing, and that they can start to build almost consent and confidence through social proof rather than scientific proof. So I love the fact that you've got that duopoly of, we're going to educate you, but here's a doctor that's also going to recommend this to you, right? And it becomes your slam dunk.
I think you've got to be, you can do that with snake oil, and they'll come in and out of the market. But the two things are, just watch out. You'll be slammed by the FDA, and they're always looking. So let's take apple cider vinegar, the gummies that have come out. If you actually go and have a look at them, they never, ever talk about appetite. They don't talk about weight. They talk about being healthy, right? And you take an apple cider vinegar. Listen, all you're taking is 40 calories in a gummy. You might as well just go and chew a proper lolly. There's no clinical. But they can't say anything. So you're right. They'll go through influencers. They'll do things like that, who will promote by saying general well-being. But the thing is, at the end of the day, they can't make claims because they have no evidence. And, consumers may be duped for a small amount of time, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And they're not going to keep taking it.
Alrighty. I know Raven's got a $64 million question. If you want to throw that one up on screen, Raven. Now, this is probably aimed at both of us. Do you use the product yourself, and what was your experience like? I actually don't know. Have you used the product yourself, Sarah?
Oh God! Well, I've been using it for 5 years.
Yeah.
I love it. It and I speak about this very openly. I'd had an unhealthy relationship with food my whole life. Coming from a family of 4 girls, dieting and all this. This completely changed my relationship with food. I take it once, twice a day, and I still love to eat. I just don't eat as much. I just have this wonderful relationship with food now. It's not good foods or bad foods. It's just, it's taken the noise out of my head. It's taken, So
That's
absolutely.
Look, I sit in front of a computer most of my day, Sarah, and again, have an unhealthy relationship with food where I like it far too much. And would have horrible eating patterns and snack at the wrong times. And I could always lose weight. I couldn't keep the weight off, right? So I would do when Atkins was a thing, right?
Yeah, we've all done that.
Yeah, I got on to doing the intermittent fasting and was seeing that was actually giving me good results of a little bit of sustained weight loss. Went through some changes in my life, put a whole lot of weight back on. I've now been on Calocurb. I was sort of like intermittent for the first sort of 2 months, and now I'm a 2 tablets in the morning person.
Me too.
And I've gone down from 107 kilos to 93 kilos. And I can have cheat weeks now, and I don't really see much fluctuation in my weight that goes through that. What I found for myself was that it's not a skinny pill. I know you said that self-will isn't a thing, but it feels like it's self-will, but what it's really doing is what you just said there, removing the noise is really interesting. And I remember starting this over Christmas when I had the kids, and we had a big box of the lollies, the Heroes chocolates on the coffee table, and the kids are tearing into them. And I looked at them and I actually just didn't want one, right? And there was no head to hand to mouth action that was kind of initiated through there. So what I would say, if anyone's going, that's considering it, it's the best thing that I've tried, and I've managed to sustain that weight off. And you even get the odd compliment now and then, which is unusual. And I now just pretty much skip lunch. Yeah.
Could I just tell you, so people understand, it's an evolutionary trait in us humans to go out and hunt for food. So this is what made us survive as cavemen. If you drop your calories by 25%, your hunger, so your ghrelin, which is another hormone, will double over 4 months. Because what it's telling you is it thinks you're going into a famine. This is your hindbrain. So it's telling you, go out and get food, go out and get food. And because it's telling you you're going into a famine, your forebrain goes, no, I'm not going to do that because, I've got willpower. Look, you put hormones, you put stress, you put alcohol, anything on that, and your forebrain falls away and your little hindbrain goes, woohoo, we're going to go and eat. And this is why diets fail. So all this is what Calocurb is doing, is assisting you, because we are telling you, you take a pill an hour before you're going to eat a meal or when you're going to fast or something, and we just tell your brain that, hey, you're okay. You're not going to, you're not going into a famine. You're actually okay. You're full, or you're not full, but you're not going to eat as much. So that's why I say it takes the noise out of your brain. So what was an absolute evolutionary trait, which is so important for us, our survival, has now become a liability. When we are surrounded by food and food cues all day, you have to help yourself and remove that liability. And you are not going to unwire your brain. It is what made us survive over thousands of years. So we just have to help you in everyday life. So it's not just about losing weight. It's about every day. So, like you, I can go past things now, when they put out muffins and scones and all the rest, you're like, yeah, that's really nice, but I don't really need it.
but I'm good. Yeah. Hey, Sarah, you've educated and inspired us. One last question I'd like to ask. So over this 6-year journey, if you go back to 2018, Sarah, and you were reliving this journey and bringing a single SKU product into the health market, what would you be telling her to do differently?
Probably not to be so naive. I don't know. I've thought a lot about that, Todd. I wished I'd met you probably 6 years ago. That would have given me a much greater head start on the digital journey. So I've had some real ups and downs over that. I've spent a lot of money on places I didn't need to spend money. I would have been.
Was that because there was some belligerence in not taking advice, or I've got this and strong-headedness? No,
I just think, you've got to remember 2017, 2018, it seems ridiculous now, but to say you were going online and digital and global was quite, there wasn't a lot of people around. It wasn't a category that I'd been in before. So probably more. What I would do differently, Todd, would be do a lot more exploratory of who was in the market, who was doing well, and how could I learn off them, rather than just saying, I've got a digital partner, I'll leave them to it, and I'll carry on doing, the other things around the product. That's what I would have done differently. I also perhaps would have, over the years, been just more singular. The 2.5 years we spent with Mexico, perhaps, I would have said, is that really what you need to do? So, I would also say, though, I wouldn't give up this journey. It's been hard work and it has been quite a bit of sacrifice, but I wouldn't give up this journey. The amount I've learned the amount I've learned and experienced, I would have never had.
Yeah, I think that's the journey for both of us as being an entrepreneur, is that the mistakes make you stronger. And I can certainly vouch for having made similar mistakes of trying to chew off more things than you thought you should have done. And that feeling of indestructibility, is that a word? But you manage to crack one market, one product, one category, one vertical, and you think, right, nailed it, rinse and repeat. And then you go and open up in your Mexico's, mine was Germany, and you suddenly get punched in the face after 2 years. And there's lots of learnings that come through that. And I think the actual, whilst there are things that I regret having elected to do on the journey, you wouldn't have made the subsequent decisions that were great decisions if you hadn't made the crap ones in the first place, right? So it's really hard to abstract the bad because that was the catalyst for the good. Yeah.
I also think it's also given me a huge amount of humility. So on the back end of my career, you grow a company. I was in the executive team of Fonterra. I've been a CEO for, nearly 25 years. And until you start a company, I shouldn't say, look, people have humility, but starting a company from scratch, right from what is going to be called, what it's going to look like, and growing through, and the amount of kickbacks you get and setbacks, I think gives you humility. I would have thought, I'm pretty good, I've done all of this, but until you start a company and you do that and you battle with that cash flow and supply chain and the kickbacks, so I think that's been probably I could have learned it when I was younger, but it's now given me a lot of humility.
Well, I think it's a very common trait where you see a lot of entrepreneurs that are coming out of very successful careers, and they've come from environments where they were used to having people say yes to them. And the reason they were saying yes to them, because I was on the exec team at Fonterra, I worked for a big, US investment bank. They weren't saying yes to me. They were saying yes to the logo that sat behind me and at the end of my email address, right? And to abstract that and realize that, oh crap, it's now all on me and I don't have a brand to back me up. It's like, that's humbling, right? But on the flip side of that, we come out of these journeys, we've been doing this for similar times, and you've got your little baby of a brand that sits behind you, and suddenly it starts to mean something, and it takes on a life of its own, and other people have that perception, and then that perception drops on to you as well. And the yeses come a lot more once you've got that stability of investment behind it. Sarah, I'm waffling. Thank you so much for your time and inspiration. It's such an incredible journey. Guys, the logo's on the screen, Calocurb. This isn't a sales pitch. This isn't a TV ad, but genuinely, this is some good gear. It genuinely works. And yeah, you'll see much more of the style of journey that Calocurb are taking their merchants on. Have a look at their digital channels, how you really educate someone on a single SKU. I think one of my favorite parts of being part of the Calocurb journey is when you very first sign up, you get this series of beautiful emails that come through that educate you on the process of, look, you're going to have a dicky belly for a couple of days, but these are the results. Here's your diet. Here's your recipes. I just got, literally, it must have been coincidence, half an hour before this, the recipe card through for lemon chicken skewers, which are going on the menu this weekend as well.
Oh, look at the one over the weekend. There's a good gin recipe. It comes from me, and that's for a great gin cocktail. So I might be having that tonight.
There we go. We'll double down on that. Have a fabulous weekend, Sarah, and thank you so much for your time as always.
Thanks, Todd.